Recording in progress.
Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising up every time we fail. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Today I got the one and only Nathan Knottingham, a true legend warrior of hey, I'm not laughing. I love you, brother. A legend, a warrior in the mortgage community, thought leader, compatriot of our good friend Christopher Griffith to the Culture Matters podcast, who's been on it numerous times. COO of Vetted VA. Why did I just have like a brain fart? Our neighbor. Be my neighbor. Be my neighbor. I love that.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Among so many other things, one of the coolest, I just remember watching very hilarious marketing videos and be like, who is this man? So thank you for coming up the show. I appreciate you, brother.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me talk to you too. It's an honor and a privilege.
Well, thank you. I really want to pick your brain, what you think is happening. We've had a lot of theme. Well, the general theme of the show in the last 6 months or so has been, how do we have the mind space to work in this economy? So, why not start there? Why not start in the conflict? What are some of the things that you and your culture are doing to I guess the quote, the greatest glory is not never failing, but in rising up every time we fail. And maybe if we haven't failed, if the market is reacting a certain way. What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny you picked that quote for me. And you don't know this. We've never talked about this specifically. My greatest fear is failing. And I have feared failure my entire life. Like, I feared bad grades. I feared letting parents down. I fear letting teachers down. And what that does when you're young kids, you start looking at how other people perceive you before you perceive yourself. Like, I find my identity in how other people think of me. And to have that come across in the last few years, thankfully I have, by the graciousness of God and in his glory, he has walked me through some pretty deep failures where I've had to say, whoa, I guess I'm still a pretty cool guy. Like, I'm a loved father, husband, and child. And like, okay, like that failure was not indicative of who I am. That failure was a response to something I was doing, and it's okay. And so then having a partner and a best friend, just a business partner like Christopher Griffith, who it's kind of like, hey, let's just fail forward. And I went to school, got the MBA stuff, did all those things. You hear all the business philosophy about fail forward, fail fast, fail, look, until you're in it and you have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, I failed. Okay, I better step up and start again. So it's really awesome you found that quote and how it correlates kind of like the man in the arena by Roosevelt, right? It's not the critic who counts. And it's the one in there with the mud, the blood, the mire, like that's the person doing the work. And so how dare those that watch it call them a failure if they're not willing to be in there and just suck through the exact same thing as the person in there fighting. So I love that you pulled that out, and I love how it applies to where we are currently and the fast transitions of the lending economy, the housing economy, the almost the social media economy, and what that looks like.
What's the morale like right now? From your, you have your hands right in the soil, smelling the earth. You're talking about an event we have coming up.
Yeah. It depends on who you are and maybe who you work for and who you surround yourself with, right? Morale is set by those that will lead. And morale through a leader who is understanding that things are tough and my identity is not in my failure, but in my kind of in me. I see me as who I am, and I'm going to go put that person forward. And if I fail, so be it. I'm still going to pick up and move forward. I want to be with those people. And frankly, luckily, graciously, I am surrounded by those people. Wow. And I need those people in my life because not all of us are all that person at the same time. But as long as there's enough of us who strive to be that person, when one of us is weak, the other can hold on and say, no, 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 we're fine. Let's go. Let's keep moving, and be that leader. So I'd say I can't speak for the entire marketplace that we are in right now, because I think there's a lot of people who will struggle through these personality conflicts, personality types will have a hard time with the unknowns, but I'll say for me, every morning, as long as I have an objective and a mission and something to focus on, I'm going to be okay. And I think that's true for Veta VA. It's true for Be My Neighbor Mortgage. It's true for training. It's true for all the little things I get to be involved in.
You think the community is key right now in a time like this? The one that you guys cultivated?
I do. Community is always key, but community of like-minded people that come from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic, cultural, societal, right? You take all the different backgrounds, but as long as they have one main call and vision and focus, which in our case for Veta VA is to serve the veteran and active duty consumer utilizing their VA benefit, that is your core. You get to call to something that's non-emotional, right? It's a non-emotional call to action. It's a driven, focused call to action that actually requires you to be better and requires you to move forward, because it's not about you. It's about this entire community around you. And so when somebody's feeling down, feeling low, feeling hurt, suffering through loss, suffering through just personal things, they have a community that can call on them and say, you're still loved, you're still appreciated, you're still respected, you're still important. Pick it up and let's keep going.
I guess, how are you looking at this upcoming Veta VA camp in relation to these macro factors? Are you taking that into account, and what are some things that you're doing? See, I'm already assuming that you're like doing something.
Look, there's no secret sauce to it, really. The doing is the fact that we are bringing a whole bunch of people together to do something completely way different that they may not be used to. I always have people attend camp. This will be our third year, and they go, I don't like guns, or I don't shoot guns, or I'm not comfortable with guns. We're like, okay, because in this next day and a half, you're going to shoot, we will shoot roughly 40,000 rounds of bullets on guns, and you're going to learn a bunch of different weapon systems. And what happens from that is, as long as people will trust us to step forward and pick it up and listen to instruction, by the time they're done, they may not be gun enthusiasts. I don't want them to be. Like, I just want them. But what they've done is they can look at each other in the eye and go, wow, we just did something together. The same. From wherever we came from, the same. The same direction, the same angle, the same target. We did this. And it's amazing how quickly that unifies a very diverse body of people. So this year we're actually inviting in, we've launched our nonprofit foundation, which is kind of just in its baby entity station. It's With Y'all Foundation. It'll be working with Veta VA to get training out there, but also to support survivors, surviving spouses, widows of service members in trying to maintain and keep home ownership. But with that, we've also utilizing them to bring in, we've got about 30 veterans who have been sponsored to come in to do this too. So now you have professionals, real estate, mortgage, spouses of the same, some insurance people, right? People that work in the industry. And then you have veterans coming in who come from a different background, who are not in the industry, and we're bringing them all together in one melding pot to say, let's have fun together and get to know each other.
Is that the first time the veterans are coming too?
It's the first time we've got veterans sponsored into this degree. Yes. So I'm really excited for what this means. And I will tell you, the messages I'm getting from them, like, oh my gosh, I need a community right now. Things are tough. This is amazing. Thank you for the opportunity. I was able to get away. So that's really cool.
Now I'm thinking, there's a cost to bringing people together, and it's a tougher time. So why not just not do it?
I think people are not doing a lot of stuff right now. I think we're not showing up to social clubs like we used to. I think we're not getting involved in Rotary and Lions Club and the VFW and the VSO, and we're not showing up to church. We're not showing up to chambers of commerce events, right? As a whole, as a society, we just are not. We are plugging into Instagram, plugging into social media, plugging into all the platforms, but that's an ancillary, adaptable connection point. You only see what I want you to see through the filter of my lens. When you show up to an event where you press the flesh, quite literally have a handshake, have a high five, have a fist bump, you get to really start to have a relationship. It takes a long time to build a relationship online. And I know we've built Vetavia over 4 years building relationship through education and experience, but I still don't know these people. I get the best next thing is when they call me and they need help, and then I hear their voice, or I share a video of myself with them, and they do the same back. Now I'm making a better connection, but I still don't know them. I'm serving them, but I don't know them. And I think to be known and to know is one of the greatest callings.
Wow. What do you think of the social aspects without the in person?
I don't think it's bad as long as we just don't equate them as the same. It's not apples to apples. We were social as kids growing up, like in the neighborhood. You saw the same kid at school. You saw the same person here. You may talk once in a while. You may have passed a note, but you weren't friends. It's the same difference. Like on social, I feel like I'm in a classroom with a bunch of people. I know your name. I know your face-ish. I know something about you. I know I can reach out to you if I need to, but I also don't have the opportunity to go, sit down and have a deeper dialogue with you unless I pursue you, and doing in such a way that doesn't cause you to put up walls and run away. Like, I don't like pursuit. Or it's creepy. Why are you calling me? Right. I just wanted to be friends on social media. So not everybody's ready for it, but as long as we don't equate the two, like a social media interaction and a physical in-person interaction is equal, as long as we don't create that equality, then, and we understand what they are.
You think that even though it happens below awareness, or people give too much of the benefit of the doubt, or I'm curious to your thought on that. Like, I think about belief versus trust a lot, right? Trust is like, I've seen you act. Belief, I perceive what you could be. They get confused. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Or you have another way of looking at that?
Belief and trust, huh?
Yeah, like, because there's these videos that go out of me even, and I've watched some of yours talking. And so someone watching that has a perception of who I could be to them.
Yeah, that's true.
And then, like, piggybacking off what you just said, that I love about that knowingness of being vetted, for example, at the camp, and shaking hands, and then watching how I actually relate to people in person as a person, not just, this guy on your screen. So I'm curious what you think about that.
I don't know that I've thought deeply about it, other than I just don't think you get to know somebody until you spend time really talking to them, really having an interaction. And I think that happens. There are people I know and people I recognize online now that I would love to sit down and have a beer with, or coffee, or whatever, right? Just spend time with. I mean, yourself, right? I think you and I met first on a call. You called me and
years ago.
Yeah, I was like, who is this guy? Right. And it wasn't until a year later I actually get to be in the same place and actually get to sit down and talk with you. And that was great, but that heightened the relationship, right? It levels up. I believe you. I believe who you say you are. And this is kind of just my personality. I believe who you show me you are on social, but I don't trust you until I've seen you stressed in that way and respond in such a way that validates my belief. Then I start trusting you. And so I think that's a big thing for me. And you can learn that over social media, right? Because people's words, how do we communicate? What is it? The 7-20-10 rule? 70% nonverbal, 20% verbal, and 10% the words you actually say. The 20% the tone of your voice.
I think I've heard a rendition of that.
Yeah, something like that, right? So don't quote me on that one for sure. So I think that having a video chat like this really does help, that we can see each other and talk and see body language, see eyebrows, hear tone of voice, hear the words I'm saying. Better connection. I don't know if that answered the question, but I like where you were going with it.
Yeah, well, I guess, like, because one part of my brain is thinking it must be a lot to bring people together in a time that isn't easy. You could have just said, let's not do it this year. And the other part of the brain is being answered by what you're saying, like, we must get together. So I'm curious how you look at that philosophically, as a speaker, as an authority, as a leader in the industry, as someone that does content. It's more not very specific question, more of like a philosophical You
Yeah.
know, so firstly, it's like, yeah, why not just not do it in a time that is uncertain?
I think we can answer that, right? We were forced to not do a lot of stuff in the COVID pandemic. We had no choice. We just couldn't. Legally could not do a lot of things.
Hmm.
I didn't like what that did. I didn't like how that felt. I didn't like how that stole my freedom of choice. I wanted the freedom to get sick. I wanted the freedom to go out and do whatever I needed to do. And so looking at an economy, I'm not going to let the economy tell me what I can and cannot do.
Hmm.
And maybe there, and I'm having an aha moment, so let me work this out with you just on the fly, right? I haven't thought this deeply through this, so let's just have this out. I learned through 2020 that I am willing to do whatever it takes to support my community, to help my community, grow my community. I'm not willing to be told that I cannot be in community anymore. So I'm not willing to let the economy scare me from being and gathering with one another. We've done that. I don't want to do that again. I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to put money on the line, personal and business money, to say this is important, not only because it's just a fun time, it's who we are at our core. And I
Wow.
have to do this. And so that for me is why some different events you and I attend regularly have been canceled or put on hold or postponed and done differently. And I'm A-okay with that. That is a business choice, and that is freedom of choice, and that is beautiful. But for Christopher and I, it really wasn't even a choice. It was like, hey, we're
Wow.
still going to do this. How do we validate this? Like, how do we just make it work without losing our shirt? Well, okay, well, let's cut back a little bit. Let's streamline a little bit, but let's not
No
forego the gathering.
grenades.
There are no grenades and there's no tannerite this year. Yeah, no tannerite. We still want to do the tannerite, but not yet.
Oh boy. What is how do you view Be My Neighbor in the sense I love like the name,
Yeah.
but what does it mean to you?
I love that because one of the things we do when a new loan officer or a partner, loan partner, anybody in the admin side comes on board, we ask them, "What does Be My Neighbor mean to you?" And we use
Wow.
those statements to kind of create some promo material for them, like, "Hey, I've joined this team." Be My Neighbor. When Isabel Williams and Christopher Griffith kind of joined their two brokerages together and asked me to be a part, and we're rebranding, we're just kicking around ideas. And look, Mr. Rogers is ingrained in the hearts and minds of many children who are now 40 some years old, and we just remember, "Won't you be my neighbor?" And then we started thinking about neighborhoods are changing. Okay, I get it. Like, some people don't love their neighborhoods, but they still are neighborly with other people. Does it require proximity of physical location to be a neighbor? Or does it require a mindset and an attitude towards others? And I think it requires the latter, right? It's a mindset and an attitude towards other people in which I get to say, "You're my neighbor. I choose you. I choose you to be my neighbor. And I'm going to care for you and I'm going to support you. What do you need? What do you need help with? How can I help?" Either I have the ability or the tool or the time or the talent, or I don't, but I know somebody who does. How can we build this neighborhood? So the more we started looking around, it really just became clear that Isabel, Christopher, myself, and the team that had already been built had that mindset. It was a core philosophy of our location, of who we were, our environment. And we realized that Be My Neighbor, we are the community we serve. And so you're like, "Yeah, but you're in 17 states." Okay. We are the community we serve. I will be just as neighborly, maybe not physically present, but on a video, on the
Hmm.
phone, talking, walking, and living with somebody through the process of helping them get a home loan. And in like kind, hopefully calling them to be better when they own that home, that they'll look around at their neighbor and say, "These are my neighbors in proximity. I can do that with these people too."
What's the reception been of that?
It's been really good. I think it was over. Oh, let me brag, right? Be My Neighbor Mortgage has over
Please.
165 five-star reviews on Google. And you know what the
Wow.
key word to all of them is? Team. Not handoff, but my team. These were my team. This is my team. And
Wait,
I
and you
think
guys do you get real reviews?
yeah, yeah, we don't. Yeah, it's
No, it's
yeah, real reviews. Yeah, nice.
people they sell those services like give
No,
fake reviews and whatnot.
no. Everybody who's on there, we know their file. We've talked to them, and they name drop
Wow.
our team, right? More than one person. And to me, that's, you could
Wow.
equate team and neighbor, just interchange those words. My neighbor did this for me. You know, Shauna, Amy, Ingrid, they're my neighbor. They helped me, right? So when we started realizing that, it was a no-brainer, and I think that's where the culture of Be My Neighbor is not to grow massive and take over the world, but it's really just to help plant secure, stable, and financially beneficial neighborhoods all over the U.S.
Were you always interested in business, or did that come later?
I That came later. I left high school saying on my senior video I was going to be a music teacher.
Really?
And I went to school. My first year was in music. I'm a classically trained bass player, like second, double bass and jazz and vocal. And went to college for the first year and went, I don't think I can earn a living for this. What else do I like to do? And I loved drama and stage and speaking. So I got an English communication degree and then added a business to it. And then I realized kind of what my foundation is I love people. Not crazy people, but I love people who want to learn, who want to help each other, who want to drive forward. I love to help them get to that next level. And so just embracing that and pushing it forward has really helped drive business opportunities for me.
Why do you think mortgage matters?
In 2007, I bought my first house with my wife. I was a store manager for Starbucks, and a regular customer walks in and goes, "Hey, you guys want to buy a house? I got to sell my house." I'm like, why not? Right? Like, everybody's buying a house. It's 2007. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I thought the process was actually really cool. And I was like, wow, you could. Okay. So I think the 2007, I was a store manager for Starbucks, and a regular customer walks in and he says to me, "Hey, do you guys want to buy a house?" And I thought, why not? Everybody and their mother buys a house at this time, right? It was super easy. You just kind of go buy a house. A bunch of my buddies from college were showing up and just buying houses. I thought, why can't I do that too? And so we got into that process, and I found that I actually kind of liked the whole thing was cool. I was in Oregon, and it was easy, and as it was being explained to me, buying a house, I found myself kind of getting more and more into, like, this makes sense. I like it. And then I saw how much they got paid when I settled on my actual home. It blew my mind how much they made on my
Wow.
loan. And I thought, wait, I had a vision of my life. You know, my wife and I had talked, we were young, married at the time, about her not working and raising the family. And so I needed an income that could grow with my needs with kids. And that was our vision, our focus, our hope, our dream. And so it was Oregon at the time. Before the SAFE Act, I hopped off and left Starbucks after I got my license. I went through the training. And I'm like, this makes sense. And I got started. And then it was May of 2007. And I'm sitting there, and some of the first things that start happening is, like, the bubble starts popping, right? Loan programs are going away. And I didn't know any better. I just kept working. I had VA loans, FHA loans, and standard conventionals. And I started to learn the reverses, and that's what I focused on. And I
Wow.
did a really good job, and lasted through 2011. But we had our baby, and we're expecting another. And I ended up at that point leaving mortgage, but it was in my blood. And I think the reality is, what I loved about it was helping somebody realize that they were worth more than they thought they were. I would sit down with other
Wow.
people my age, younger than me, older than me, saying, I've never bought a house. I want to buy a house. I have a dream. And helping them realize what it took to get to that place. And then knowing for myself what it took, even buying a house that really I couldn't afford, just the wrong loan program. I should have been more prepared. But with all those negatives stacked against me, it was the most positive thing I did financially for my entire family.
Wow.
It blew my mind, right? I went into a 100% purchase on an 80/20 for a loan for a property that dropped in value. And 10 years later, I sold it for just what I bought it for, right? I got out by the skin of my teeth, but I knew what I was doing for the next time. And the next house, I turned it around. And in 3 years, I doubled its profit value, right? I walked out with double the equity than what I bought it for because I knew what it was then. I'd been teaching people how to do it, and I did it myself. And so I see that real estate, home ownership is something that I also think is a bit biblical. In Genesis, man is told to go out and just have dominion over the earth. And while we're not going out and maybe finding new land in our world anymore, home ownership is something when you own a piece of soil, even if you pay tax on it, even if you got all the stuff, you still walk into that house differently than if you're renting. You still worry about the weed differently than when you're renting. You still look at the ceiling and think about the plumbing and think about the HVAC differently when you own it, because you understand that that's your part. You're having like this dominion over this plot of land, and you're providing for your family, you're providing for yourself, you're providing for your future. And so it became more of a call to business and more instead a call just to mission and focus of my life. And that just led to training, led to other opportunities to speak, led to building things like Vetivier, led to helping lead a mortgage company, and just share that passion with other people.
Your grandfather was in business?
It's a good memory. Yeah. So my grandfather, World War II veteran, he passed a number of years ago, but he got out. He was served in World War II, the Navy, on a destroyer, the USS Portland. And when he got out, he landed there and stayed in Oregon, but instead of the Eastern Oregon and the High Plains deserts, he went to the coast, opened a auto repair shop, which morphed into a home appliance repair shop, which he then grew to Nottingham's Appliance Repair. And we'd go down and see Grandpa all the time, and it wasn't until he finally sold it, and it was getting close to the end of his life, and we're working on a living trust and trying to get everything balanced out and having conversations. And he's like, I just saved money and did what I do, and I guess I'm taken care of, right? And I was looking at him like, but I'm looking at a trust that I was like, wait a minute, you started from living, like born in a 1-room 10-by-8 shack with your 5 brothers and sisters and your mom and dad in the middle of nowhere as sheep ranchers in Oregon, to having this much money at, like, wow.
How old were you?
How does this work?
How old were you when you were influenced by that?
Well, I was always influenced by Grandpa because he could fix anything. Anything. Like, right. It was that old style of, if I've got tape, twine, and rope, I can do anything. And everything was always fixed. It was always put back together. It wasn't new, but it always really worked well. And so I was always influenced by that. And he was also imaginative. He would create things. He was the first one. My grandfather, born in 1919, was the first one to explain to me LED lights in like the early 90s, what an LED light and how it was going to revolutionize the world. I'm like, I don't get it. He goes, it's an electron falling off a cliff, and every time it falls off, it just has a spurt of electricity. He goes, and it's cheaper to throw things down in gravity than it is to try to burn them. And he goes, that's why LEDs are going to take over. I'm like, what? And now I look around, and he was absolutely right. He was just way early in it. But he just had that kind of brain. He was always thinking about those things. And so the financial thing was influential when I was in my mid to late 20s, but the awareness, curiosity, and the can-do attitude was the most influential thing about Grandpa. And I think that's why it was so important to me. Like, I'm in North Texas now, living on 10 acres. I have a shop. I try to embody some of those things he taught me. Like, when something breaks, I don't throw it out. I try to fix it. Right. I want to be sufficient like that. It's really important.
The takeaway for this episode for our audience, what do you want them to be thinking and potentially doing in this time, in this market, in the spirit of the conversation today?
I just want to go back to your quote. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. Right. I think the best thing to do right now, we are facing the one word which has become synonymous with all things since 2020 is unprecedented. I see it all the time, right? Yeah. Unprecedented is how we're just going to explain the decades of the 20s. This is it. Oddly enough, like let's look historically, the 1920s were also unprecedented. So the 2020s are unprecedented. I'll say this though, no matter what we do looking forward, surround yourself with whatever industry you happen to be in right now. Surround yourself with people who are willing to fail or willing to just stand by you if you fail. And you don't always know who they are until you go through the process, but be willing to fail and understand it doesn't reflect who you are, your value to the world, your value to society, your value to your family, your value to God. It reflects your ability to fall on your face and stand back up and keep moving forward. And that is the biggest life lesson that I learned for myself over and over, and the one that I want my children to learn early and to make personal, and the one that I want my community to learn and embrace each other when it happens, that we don't sacrifice and ostracize those who fail, but instead we gather around them and say, hey, that sucks. Okay, let's go. Like, pick it up. Let's keep moving. Like, that's all we need.